is given what a cerebral profession it is.
Yes, we hate people.
Yeah, so we really run the risk of becoming disembodied.
Yeah.
Because if you did exercise, for example, and you only worked your arms, like you'd end up as this kind of weirdly skinny person with giant arms.
Yes.
But yet, like we, in expressing our intelligences, we over-rely on our mind.
Yeah.
And not realizing actually that there's so much information actually coming in through your heart, through your body, and that there's a fuller way to be in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about not using your mind. It's about using your mind and every other intelligence that you have.
Yeah.
So when you learn to be present, you learn to slow down, you learn to be embodied, you learn to breathe. It actually increases your capacity to think, and the word think in the thinking environment
is broader.
Yes,
it's not cerebral.
It's not cerebral only. It's not happening above your neck.
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually bringing your whole being,
which also takes a lot of energy, right?
Yes and no, because again, it's that thing about how energy flows and moves, right? So when there are impediments, so when we're disembodied, what happens is
putting impediments in
the way, so the body gets blocked and locked, and their parts. So I mean, even
it's less natural, actually.
Yes, it's less natural. So actually, to have a flow of energy through the body,
yes,
and like the breath reaching everywhere,
yes,
and all of your mitochondria getting activated. There's actually providing a better vessel for energy to move through.
Yes.
And I don't mean it in a obtuse way.
No, 100%.
I mean it as in literally, we learned in biology about ATP, right? Like there's energy being generated in every cell of your body via your mitochondria.
Yeah.
But that energy needs to, it moves. It's not static. Nothing in nature is static.
Yeah.
And we're part of nature. So it's actually completely obvious, that there's a dynamic system. And if all of your effort and awareness is only located in one part of your being, being above your neck, then the rest will struggle a little bit.
Yeah, because it's not actually how you should function.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it takes energy to cultivate, to break
the habit. Yes. So to bring the barrier takes a lot of energy, but longer term is more sustainable because it is, as you say, more natural.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We see it with certain kinds of breath work where there's quite a lot of effort in the first, say, 10 minutes, because you've got to actually almost build up enough energy in your system to be able to move past a certain point.
Yes.
And then you hit a barrier where most people want to sort of give up. And if you just sustain over that barrier, then there's a level of ease, which is just unbelievable. So we often talk about at that point, your body is breathed. It's you stop having to work so hard, and something else takes over, some kind of instinctual thing takes over.
Sure.
So that's been my experience. It's been that as I work less, I work the least now that I think I've ever worked, really.
Sure.
And as I go much slower, I meditate a lot, I breathe a lot, I spend a lot of time in nature. The quality of my strategic thinking is the best it's ever.
Really?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Part of that is experience.
It is. I mean, you're not negating that, but it's also the way that you're approaching orders, right?
Yes. And it's definitely the quality of presence, quality of awareness.
Yes.
And attunement. I can find there's an attunement to picking up on quite subtle things that I might have missed before.
Because of that sort of, go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And almost like self-involvement.
Yeah.
I'm so busy with my own mind.
Yeah, I don't have that capacity to focus on anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I am now, is that I spend a little bit of time with each of the companies that I co-founded. They've all got beautiful new leadership teams. So we've done this kind of intergenerational leadership transition.
Sure.
So I'm still involved from a kind of strategy and governance perspective. But I also spent a lot of my time on my own practices, and then offering various, retreats and meditation journeys and breathwork journeys to people. So I've finally arrived at a point where I get to do some of the one-on-one healing that I would have done if I was a doctor.
Amazing.
Yeah, so
and that could have been quite a strange full circle moment for you.
It's been very strange. So particularly with the breathwork course this year, we've also arrived at a point where I'm learning differently. I realized like how much of my learning journey was very constricted. It's very draw inside the color inside the lines. Since I've been about 5 or 6 years old. But arriving at a curriculum with so much delight that includes, biomechanics and kind of neurodynamics and like all of these clinical things, but alongside indigenous knowledge systems about the breath. So understanding how it plays out in African cosmologies, how it plays out in yogic traditions, and talking about the kind of energy body or subtle body, which I wouldn't have been taught if I'd gone to medical school. I've arrived at a point where I get to work one-on-one with people, and I'm still working at a system level through the beautiful work that Aligned and Percept do. It really is a kind of a personal career fractal of all the way from like the one-on-one, working at the same things at like different scales.
And how that's sort of, as you say, like interwoven throughout that story, how you build a skill set that you've used in many different spaces.
Yes.
Which must also be quite encouraging looking back.
It is. It does make a lot more sense looking back.
As most things do, right?
Because, it really is a very varied. I've had a very varied career.
And that was part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I think something that I wanted to do on the podcast is say actuaries are not one type of person. And I think it links back to what you said earlier when you started at UCT, was sort of saying, actuaries were seen as a specific type of person. And my kind of challenge to that is, yes, the skill sets are similar, like the tools that you have are similar, but anyone can create those tools. And given those other backgrounds that are coming into actuarial science now, I'm so excited about the problems that actuaries can now face because of there being different people who are now actuaries.
Absolutely.
That to me is incredibly exciing.
No,
I'm so excited
it's
about it.
It's really exciting. It's really, really exciting, because, I really have seen, just a very not diverse beginning.
Yeah.
And we often don't talk about the history and the roots of the profession, right?
Yeah.
It's, in many ways, deeply problematic, right? The roots of the profession come from the shipping industry, and it was the insurance of slaves. So we've got this deeply colonial, imperial, racist past, and it's taken it continues to be work that needs to be done to build a profession that is open and diverse and connected to
and allows human voices.
There are different voices.
So
it's beautiful that you're exposing people to the different ways, because I know the comfort I took from meeting Heather and the relief of like,
I know it's like a break, right?
Oh no,
it's okay.
It's okay.
Talking about breath, I feel like that's a natural segue.
Yes.
Would you mind taking us through a breathing exercise? I remember you've taken me through the meditation course that we did together, and the one I particularly liked was the one that you did with the hands, where you trace around your fingers. You're going to laugh now. I do it before every single lecture. Like, I kind of have to, calm down my nervous system, because I still get nervous when I lecture. And I stand there, and I'm like, okay, do your finger. And I trace my fingers. And then when I get to the last finger, I'm like, let's go. So I want you to take us through some breathing exercise. So to our audience, this is your cue to settle down, because we're going to do a breathing exercise now, and hopefully it will help relax you. Over to you.
So finding a comfortable posture, so important with the breath, that we have a sense of spaciousness in our bodies. So making sure that your spine is beautifully innervated. There's a sense of a thread at the crown of your head, just very gently lifting up your spine. Your sternum is also very slightly uplifted, almost as if you're standing outside and wanting to get a little bit of sun. There's something that we sort of naturally do where we drop our shoulders back and our arms drop down. Also making sure that your chin is slightly tucked in so that there's a sense that your whole spine is kind of stacked, each vertebra is stacked on the one beneath it. So the crown of your head is roughly above the root of your spine. We start by just becoming aware of our breath. Sometimes we don't realize that our bodies are breathing all the time. So noticing where in your body you can feel the breath. You might feel it in your nostrils, might feel it in the back of your throat. Might be aware of your belly moving, the rib cage moving. So they're very intentionally beginning to elongate your breath. So deepen it and stretch it and smooth it out. So you might notice that your breath catches slightly. So noticing that there's a beginning, there's an inhalation, there's a middle, and there's an end. And then there's a beginning again. So noticing that there's a rhythmic, cyclical structure to the breath. And then beginning to expand each phase of the breath. So really feeling into your lungs, the full capacity of your lungs. Becoming aware of your diaphragm. It's a big muscle that sits running from the base of your breastbone, wrapping around the back of your body all the way down to behind your navel. And the diaphragm flattens with each inhalation to create space for the lungs. And actually just through that process, if we allow the diaphragm to flatten and the lungs to expand, the air kind of naturally flows into the lungs because of the difference in pressure. And there's all of this gorgeous connective tissue inside the body. So if you think about peeling a nachi, and you see that webbing that lies over the segments, we have a similar webbing in our bodies. So as you breathe, kind of feeling how with each breath, you can actually feel the connective tissue stretching and softening. Feel it over your ribs, feel it connecting to your heart. And then you can take hold of one of your hands with your other hand. So just touching your hands against each other, feeling the temperature. You might want to just rub them against each other gently. So awakening your sense of touch. And touching yourself very tenderly, gently, with kindness. So then what we get to do is called the 5-finger breath. This is what Margie was talking about, where you're going to take one of your fingers and slide it, starting at the base of the thumb. So as you inhale, sliding it up the thumb, and then cresting the thumb, and exhale as you come down the inside of the thumb. And then inhaling as you slide up your pointer finger, finding your own rhythm and pace, wanting to go as slowly as possible, and exhaling as you come down, and then up the middle finger. So all we're doing is 5 slow, steady breaths, accompanied by touch. When you get to the end, you can just very gently place your palms against each other. You can rest your hands in your lap, and coming back into the room together. Hopefully feeling a little bit steadier and quieter.
You're lovely. Shivani, thank you. This has been so insightful. I think the audience is going to benefit so much from this discussion. So thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you, Margie, for being here and for the work that you do, and inspiring a new generation of actuaries to use their voices and use their hearts. And hope your podcast ripples out in beautiful ways into the world.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And to our audience, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and